is the sum total of artifacts which any group accumulates in its struggle for survival and autonomy. Right. Then it's dynamic because it's a struggle. It's not static. It doesn't stand still and never change. It changes with the condition, okay? Because as you try to survive and to be self-autonomous and the conditions change that keep you from doing that, you change in order to combat those conditions. Am I making sense to you? Okay.
Stop right there at the gate. At the gate, yeah, because you know she dropping them. So she started off by giving a definition of culture, not the definition, but a definition of culture. And we know we talked about culture in the past, and culture it dictates how we walk, talk, think, act, sleep, defend ourselves, and all these different things. And she's talking about attacks on your culture, threats to your culture, things that are or people who put themselves in place to change your culture to fit their benefit. And when your culture is threatened, like she's saying, we have to be able to adjust to protect ourselves. Clearly, we ain't been doing that. Clearly, we ain't been doing that. Especially, we could say, of course, we could say it longer than 100 years, but especially like for the past 100 years, we have not had any. I'm gonna use the word moats. We haven't had any moats around our culture, around us, period, to protect us from outside forces, i.e., white supremacy, coming in to give us their cultural traits, so that therefore they can dictate their culture and keep their position. So if we have culture and we're not able to protect that culture, it's gonna be difficult to self-actualize. So out the gate, that's what I'm thinking. What you thinking, PC?
Well, one of the things that she brings to light early on is that if even when you're trying to get on code, if you're within or you are a subset of another people's culture, once they see you organizing and mobilizing, they can throw a monkey wrench in the dynamic of society and totally put you in a position where you have to fall back on your plans of independence, your plans of self-sufficiency and things of that nature, because now you have to be worried about your current situation, your current survival, you know. So it's like when just not too long ago, Starbucks, the workers at Starbucks were trying to organize in some of the buildings, some of the different stores were trying to create a union. Well, you know, Starbucks had like a red cup day. So people were like, forget that strike. I need to get in there and get this red cup special. And then the people who were like protesting and going on had to go back to work because the strike didn't work. They threw a monkey wrench into it. So it didn't allow them the autonomy of having a union to protect them as they saw fit. And similarly, in cultures, especially if you're talking about Black people living in this country, when people see us mobilizing and organizing and they see it as being effective, they often do things, you know, this government, white supremacy, however you want to call it, often does things to throw a monkey wrench in what we're trying to build, create different dynamics so that we have to sort of fall back off of that and move accordingly and become reactive to whatever damage they've inflicted on us. So it's a very effective strategy because it'll always keep you off balance. And you know, something simple, you know, you can be organizing, but now we're going to raise the interest rates. So now everything costs more. So what you were planning to do when you were organizing, now you have to take a back seat because now you have to fall back on survival. And like I said, it's a very effective strategy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to highlight, now this is a perfect place to stop it, is the dynamic nature that she spoke of. This is something that we've been talking about a lot over the years. And it's something that those of us that are studying white supremacy need to pay more attention to. White supremacy changes. It's not static. It's not, you know what I'm saying? And just black people change as well for those of us that are studying black people. And so a lot of the times what you have is people in the community organization meetings or the plannings or the committees or whatever, like they'll read a history book or a history article, and then they get locked in on the presentation of what was given to them in their source of information, the time period, the context, everything. They get locked in, and the ability to translate past events into what's happening now is lost. You know, that's a wonderful thing about what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So consequently, you know, you have old modalities and old strategies constantly being reused, aka the march and boycott rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't take into account the dynamics have shifted. The situation is not the same. Yes, we're still fighting the same enemy, but that enemy isn't moving the same, and we're not moving the same either.
Nah.
So that's one thing that I love that, you know, she harped on, or she jumped right into that at the early part of this clip anyways that you selected, was just that piece of like, we really need to get serious about updating our understanding of what's happening, and that update has to happen on a constant basis. Like every time you change, white supremacy changes, and the changes that white supremacy makes also changes you. So the strategies that you thought up 40 years ago aren't going to work the same way now as they did 40 years ago. Now, I'm not saying they won't work at all, but you more than likely are going to have to make some adjustments in order to make sure that the things you're doing are efficient.
That's a real. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna say evolve or die, because and I was just gonna say this real quick. Evolve or die. The white supremacists, they're supposed to do this. This is what they're supposed to do to maintain control. They're supposed to throw a monkey wrench in our plans. But we, like she's saying, we are supposed to be at a level where we can protect ourselves from the monkey wrench, or even counter the monkey wrench that's being thrown in our plans. But the problem is today, and to build off what Pat was saying too, is one of the differences, white supremacy will always evolve, but we have to be honest with ourselves and say, white people don't have to move like they used to move, because we're doing it for them. We're doing the dirty job. We're doing the job. We're doing the dirty work for them. We're doing it to ourselves. We stay at each other's throat. So yeah, you're right, Pat. You're correct. White supremacy don't have to move the same way, because that's what the seeds that they planted a while ago to create the Negro mindset has us on autopilot, and we doing the dirty work for them. That's what I want to say. Go ahead, PC.
Well, it's like, and I mean, yeah, you pretty much said what I was going to say. So I really don't need to add too much to it. You know, you pretty much, y'all both addressed what I was going to say in regards to the adaptation of the system and how proactive they are in keeping us off balance and predictable models of our behavior, and knowing when to push us this way, knowing when to nudge us this way. And we've been perfectly trained Negroes, you know what I'm saying? So they don't have to do as much, because they've trained us on how to police ourselves. And you know, the models from the plantation have just been adapted and readjusted, and but it's the same, you know, it's the same format. So, you know.
Yep. All right, let's move forward.
Now, what is survival? I mean, you know, what survival means that the group has to do at least three things. One, the group has to see that each individual member keeps himself or herself in good enough mental, moral, spiritual, and physical health long enough to reproduce that self and then take care of whatever you reproduce. That's the least. If you don't do that, the group dies. It's gone.
Well,
Mhm.
well, we are dying.
Boy.
I mean, it's the current culture we have. It's destructive. It's degenerate culture. It's toxic culture. It's anti-black culture. It's black and anti-black at the same time. And that's the thing. Like I just said, we have been programmed and we brought into the program. And like she says, we've passed down negative cultural traits. We really don't like each other. Because think about the mindset a group of people has to have to see somebody that looks like you in a confrontational situation and won't think twice about taking that person out. But will be in the same confrontational situation with somebody else from another group that don't look like you and will have the wherewithal to think about what they do before they do it. That's some real conditioning. Like our minds are messed up, but this is what we're passing down. I know me and Pat had the conversation before, and I was just thinking today, my generation right now, we are like the parents right now, and we messing up. We're not passing down nothing good, but at the same time, a lot of us didn't have good things to pass it down, good culture to pass down, good morals to pass down, good values to pass down. You don't get a hot girl summer if you don't have a freak me. I'm just saying it starts somewhere. Like there's a song from 1938 where this woman is talking, this real vulgar song from 1938, and not just talk about the women because we already know how the music the men make, but it's the programming that we have and the way we think about ourselves, the way we look at ourselves, the way we talk about ourselves, the way we feel about each other. We don't give a damn about each other. We look at each other as enemies, and that's the culture we continue to pass down. And if we it feel like it's about over because we keep gravitating to the negativity and we keep passing it down. Look at social media. Black people think it's cute to have their kids cussing them out. Black people think it's cute to run up to their little kids and say, I got to fight. I need you to come fight with me. Black people think it's cute to have their kids with guns and all these other things, just being real ratchet all over. We think that's cute. And then when the kids grow up and you can't handle the kids, now you're mad, but you taught them to behave that way. We're teaching the kids to behave that way. Why? Because we was taught to behave that way. Messed up culture keep getting passed down. I'm done.
You tackle it, Pat.
No, I mean, it's so a big part of it is programming, absolutely. And I think one of the challenges, because we can keep adding on to what Joe just said. You know, I'm constantly sharing TikToks with y'all about I shared one earlier where the mama was filming the kid spanking the daddy like hard with a belt and then ran out the room as the daddy woke up to being spanked and chased the baby out the room. And in the comments, everybody making jokes. I shared a video about two little boys they couldn't have been no more than 5-6 years old in a big wheel, and the cops pulled up behind them, and both the little boys jumped out the big wheel and ran into the house, and everybody making jokes and all that stuff is cool when they 5 and 6. But then what happened when they 15 and 16, or when they 25 and 26? Is it still cute? It ain't cute then. So why are we embracing and endorsing that type of behavior when they're young? So I think I agree with you. I think the programming is there. I think there's a lot to go into that, but to keep from getting long-winded, I'm gonna go ahead and shut down here. But there's a lot. Like, to me, the programming piece is a whole show in and of itself.
Yeah.
That we really need to dig deeper into, because a lot of us don't even realize the different levels that it's operating on. We were speaking earlier this week about a pro-black lady, a lady who said she was pro-black, but based the first half of her name off Greek mythology and the second half of her name off German linguistics.
And talking bad about black men.
Right.
Because she's mad about her situation that she put herself in.
And here's the flip side of that, right? A a lot of people will hear that and will say, yeah, but the Greeks got the knowledge from black people. So really she's giving honor to black people. And to that I would say, well, why didn't she use the African names that it came from? Because the Africans didn't call her Aphrodite. You know what I'm saying? And you got no excuse for the German joint. So you know what I'm saying? But that's the level of programming we on, where even when we get some information, we immediately try to shift it. Instead of changing the way we think and the way we do things, we try to fit it into the program. That's why you can have somebody say, I'm pro-black this, I'm pro-black that, but then also say, I'm a part of a Greek letter society that was basically modeled after white people that wouldn't let you in theirs.
You know, that pro-black term is very loose these days.
Yes, it is weird.
I'm sorry, did I say? I'm gonna edit that out, Joe.
I will.
But but you know, when I think about where we've devolved, and Amos Wilson was really good about talking about you can make progress, but you can also regress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we hit that place in probably the late 70s, early 80s when we started to regress, culturally speaking. And it went from black people building businesses, communities, black people being neighborly and friendly with one another. We actually had neighborhoods. And we lost that with, you know, the advent of the crack cocaine era, Reaganomics, and toward the late 80s. Before, when the 90s came, that was the end of the neighborhood, end of the community, end of all those things. And this is one of those things again, whereas when black people were making progress, the war on drugs was utilized to destabilize black communities. And also what happened was we stopped progressing as a people, spiritually, physically, mentally. We started to regress. And our ideals went from nation building or community building to leisure, food, playtime, and overall embracing the toxic culture